Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are literally stepping back to the very dawn of human history to decode a profound cosmic mystery, one that's completely hidden within an ancient Hebrew text. We're going to look really closely at Genesis 3:15. It's actually astonishing to think about. A single, easily overlooked sentence of just a few Hebrew words ended up spawning thousands of years of theological debate and literally shaped the trajectory of three major world religions. It is the absolute blueprint for an epic rescue mission, setting the stage for every single thing that follows in the biblical narrative. So get ready, because we're about to unpack the language, the symbols, and the incredible overarching story of redemption. So let's start right at the beginning, the fractured garden. We don't need to rehash all the basics of the fall, but pay close attention to the sharp literary transition in the text here. Literally in an instant, the narrative shifts from this devastating tragedy of exile and mortality right into a strategic divine war room. The perfect harmony of creation was completely shattered by deception, and the stakes, well, they could not have been higher. And yet, in the exact moment of catastrophic loss, right when the narrative seemed to point toward absolute finality, a highly specific rescue plan was immediately spoken into existence. Okay, let's dive into this. The divine response comes in the form of a hyper-specific declaration. Elohim speaks right into the darkness and says, Hu yashufka rosh, ve ata teshufenu akev. Translated, that means, he will crush your head, and you will strike his heel. Now, this isn't just some poetic curse thrown out in anger, right? This is the very first prophecy of redemption in Scripture. It is a divine declaration of war and a promise of ultimate victory that literally sets the trajectory for the rest of human history. To truly grasp the sheer magnitude of this cosmic conflict, we've got to decode this ancient Hebrew. First up, we have the Nakash, pronounced Nakash. This translates to the serpent, the shadowy adversary who deceived the woman in the garden. But if you look at the broader ancient Near Eastern context, a Nakash wasn't just a garden snake. The term was actually often associated with chaos dragons or deep divine rebellion. By identifying the Nakash, the text reveals exactly who the enemy is in this fractured world. This is a formidable entity, and its authority is destined to be challenged and ultimately destroyed by this promised rescue plan. Now, what's really interesting about this is the phrase Zera Haisha, which translates to the seed of the woman. This introduces a literal biological impossibility for that era. Think about it. In ancient Hebrew biology and lineage tracking, women do not carry the zera or seed. That characteristic is strictly attributed to the man. It represents the paternal line. So by specifically designating this as the seed of the woman, the ancient text is dropping a massive etymological hook. It's pointing directly to a miraculous birth, a redeemer who will enter the world in a way never seen before, entirely bypassing the human paternal line. And building on that miraculous birth, we hit the word hu. This translates simply to he, and in Hebrew grammar, it's specifically masculine singular. This is a critical, defining detail in the manuscript. The text isn't talking about a collective group of people eventually finding their way, or some vague philosophical concept of goodness triumphing over evil in the end. No, the grammar specifically guarantees that a single male redeemer is coming, a designated son, a specific deliverer. So the crucial point is how this singular redeemer will actually achieve his victory, which unfolds through this incredibly fascinating dual prophecy. On one hand, crushing the head symbolizes the total destruction of the adversary's authority, ending the power of sin, death, and chaos once and for all. But to achieve that total victory, we have the other half of the prophecy, striking the heel. This points directly to a devastating wound. It tells us that the Redeemer's ultimate victory fundamentally requires his own suffering and sacrifice. He will conquer, absolutely, but he's going to be a wounded victor. I mean, the ink is barely dry on this prophecy of a wounded victor before we see the first physical shadow of it. The text immediately tells us of the very first sacrifice, where Elohim clothed Adam and Eve with garments of skin. To provide these physical garments to cover their shame, an innocent life had to be taken. Blood was shed for the very first time in human history. This striking image of divine light covering humanity's brokenness is a really powerful, tangible preview of the ultimate cosmic sacrifice that was just promised in the prophecy. And that brings us to the foundational concept of Kippur, or Kippur, which means atonement. You see, the shedding of blood to create those garments of skin wasn't just practical for warmth. It introduced the profound spiritual concept of Kippur to the world. It shows us exactly how sacrifice is used to cover humanity's fractured state. This sets a vital precedent, a theological pattern of atonement that will echo loudly and continuously throughout all the subsequent ancient texts and sacrificial systems. Let's move on and see how this builds, because this promise of a miraculous suffering Redeemer wasn't just an isolated incident. It became the architectural blueprint for the rest of the biblical text, echoing across generations. We can literally trace this promised seed chronologically right down the historical line. Starting from Adam, surviving the great flood through Noah in the 10th generation, being promised a vast nation through Abraham in the 20th, establishing a royal eternal lineage with David in the 33rd, all the way down to the prophets in the 40th generation and beyond. They all looked forward to this specific suffering servant.
All of that complex lineage ultimately points to one culminating moment: the fulfillment in Yeshua. According to the historical and theological narrative of our source material, in the fullness of time, the ancient promise finally took physical form. Yeshua enters the scene, born of a woman, yet critically without human seed. This flawlessly aligns with that ancient, biologically impossible Hebrew mystery of the Zorah Ha'esha we decoded earlier. The Redeemer promised in Genesis became the Redeemer revealed in Yeshua.
Watch how the life of this wounded victor perfectly maps onto that ancient dual prophecy. First, we have the incarnation, that miraculous birth fulfilling the seed of the woman. Next comes the crucifixion. Just as the prophecy explicitly stated, "You will strike his heel," Yeshua was wounded for our sinnerous transgressions, suffering a brutal sacrificial death on a cross. But then comes the resurrection. By conquering death itself, the serpent's head was definitively crushed. The power of the adversary was utterly broken by the very sacrifice that was meant to destroy the Redeemer.
Which brings us to the ultimate conclusion of this sweeping cosmic narrative. The story that began in a dark, fractured garden finds its total, radiant triumph in the book of Revelation. We finally see the final victory and humanity fully restored. The adversary is permanently destroyed, the curse of Eden is completely lifted, and the Redeemer, who was promised all those millennia ago in Genesis, reigns forever in a newly restored creation.
We have traced an incredible, continuous narrative spanning millennia, all originating from one single sentence spoken in an ancient garden. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this thought. If the ultimate rescue mission for humanity was woven into the very first moments of our brokenness, and this ancient plan was so meticulously fulfilled over thousands of years, what does that mean for the broken parts of your own story today? How does stepping into this grand cosmic narrative change your perspective? Think deeply about that. Keep studying the text, keep asking questions, and thanks for exploring this mystery with me today.